Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Okay, lowlifes, let's welcome our revolting host. He's the only overweight reindeer on the block who's got hepatitis A, B, and C. It's Bootlegger Barreled.
Who fucking farted?
Shut up! Shut up!
Looking terrible, Barry.
Feeling terrible, Fly.
Oh, that's from the movie!
Barry, I hear you've been rolling up on Willie D's live streams.
Bankrupt Barry, you got jokes. Turn your cap lock off, player.
Better fetch them reading glasses, Big Willie. I wasn't using caps lock. Okay, you chuds. 'Tis the season for heartache and misfortune. First, we considered going for that crazy-ass 1992 movie Toys, starring Robin Williams. But despite that movie's astonishing aesthetics, there's not really a whole lot under the hood. And we also considered that newer movie, Violent Night, starring David Harbour and John Leguizamo.
Santa, I'm gonna rip your fucking balls off.
I even know their credit ratings and their dick sizes, if you get me.
It's a funny movie, but it's not really on brand for the channel.
Barry, please tell me you're gonna buy me the Lego Goonies play set for Christmas.
I will not pay retail for them fancy Legos, Wovan. You have to make do with the dollar store version.
It's time to flip that saggy-ass frown, Bovan. Bro, Shania and I went in together on like 10 value packs of sliced ham. We're gonna stack them all together and then zap them in the microwave. It's gonna be a feast, like something out of Chuck Dickens.
I love your hot Christmas ham, Marco. Can't wait to get it stuck between my teeth.
Yeah, and I got a jumbo bottle of Robitussin we can pour on top. That way we can all sleep straight through New Year's and be done with 2025 forever.
Fucking amen to that.
Shut up, asswipes. So, this year we're reviewing Jonathan Landis' 1983 classic, Trading Places, starring all-time greats Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. Now, let's hear from today's special guest, Mr. GoodView.
Wow. Thanks for inviting me, Barry. You guys all look fancy for this festivities. Why didn't anybody tell me to fucking dress up?
Mr. Goodbar, you should see the decorations on my grundle.
That's crazy. What made you pick Trading Places, Barry?
I already told you in the intro, asswipe.
Really?
Don't be a smart ass, you son of a
Makes you think about your financial debacles in 2007, doesn't it, Barry?
God damn it, GoodView! You promised not to tell!
Barry, tell him about production, you sloppy old Yuletide witch.
So the concept for Trading Places emerges when Tim Harris, the co-writer, decides to adapt a real-life experience he had playing tennis against two wealthy prick brothers who constantly bickered about who had to fork over a couple of quarters for the crummy-ass tennis court they used.
Originally, the story was called Black and White, but director John Landis hated that title.
The script was originally intended for Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, but then Richard Pryor turned himself into a human Duralog.
He pulled the old self-immolation.
Yeah, and then it's also been alleged that John Belushi was supposed to play the Billy Ray Valentine role, but of course he kicked it in 1982.
Yeah, but Dan Aykroyd had recently found some success with Blues Brothers, so we ended up with him and Eddie Murphy, who was kind of an unknown quantity at the time. See, 48 Hours hadn't yet been released, but it was testing very well, and it was generally believed that Eddie Murphy was an upcoming star.
By the way, director John Landis was coming directly off the back of filming the Twilight Zone movie, during which Vic Morrow and two little Vietnamese kids were killed horrifically in a helicopter stunt gone wrong.
I read that even years before the accident, Vic Morrow had been complaining of recurring premonitions about dying in a helicopter accident.
You chud viewers should look this stuff up. It's actually pretty awful. In fact, it was so bad that John Landis was tried for manslaughter. though he beat them charges.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, John Landis, not guilty of involuntary manslaughter, as charged in count 1 of the amended information.
Son of a bitch was paying them kids under the table and didn't tell their parents they'd be dealing with actual helicopters and explosives and shit. Plus, what kind of scumfuck director has 6- and 7-year-old kids filming water scenes at 2:30 in the morning?
Yeah, John Landis.
Yup, John Landis.
There's also plenty of testimony that Landis himself was calling for the helicopter to drift lower and lower just prior to the crash.
Jesus, turkey stuffing Christ. This production history's darker than an episode of Black Mirror.
Barry, let's talk about the cast before all 3 of our viewers pull a Winthorpe.
Okay, gang. So, unless you're a full and complete dipshit, you recognize almost every actor in this movie. I'm gonna assume you already know about Eddie Murphy, who plays Billy Ray Valentine, and Dan Aykroyd, who plays Lewis Winthorpe, but we also got the piping hot Jamie Lee Curtis in the role of Ophelia, a sex worker with a Shakespearean name and a soft spot for Dan Aykroyd types. Seriously, these two must have gotten along pretty well because they teamed up in other movies.
And then some of you might recognize Duke and Duke, the 2 all-rich Wall Street shitheels. Ralph Bellamy plays Randolph Duke. He was in The Wolfman and the Twilight Zone TV show and a bunch of other stuff. And then Mortimer Duke is played by Don Amici, who was in that fucking Cocoon movie with old Diabetes Brimley.
Yeah, but we got some great cameos throughout. Like this scene where Billy Ray is in jail with Giancarlo Esposito, or Gus Fring himself.
Yeah, but that guy on the left is NFL lineman J.T. Turner, so that's another cameo.
Plus, we got the legend himself, Bo Diddley, making a cameo as the pawn shop owner.
Burnt my fingers, man.
Plus, SNL alumnus and former United States Senator Al Franken plays a baggage handler.
Hey, I think I remember this old boy from the Airplane movie.
Its care and feeding instructions are on this bill of lading.
We've also got Bill Cobbs as the bartender. He was in People Under the Stairs.
You do have enough to pay your rent for a while. Say to the year 2000.
White folks love that guy almost as much as Morgan Freeman.
And that's Frank Oz playing the dirty-ass cop who books Winthorpe.
You ever seen what this stuff does to kids?
Yeah, and here's goddamn Jim Belushi looking pleased as shit that his big brother OD'd, so he could go on to have a crappy movie career. Okay, let's call in our special guest, Mr. GoodView. But what's your take on the cast?
If I could change any of the characters, though, I honestly would, I'd probably just change the actor who played Coleman. I'd put Leslie Nielsen in there because...
Leslie Nielsen was a goddamn national treasure. It's just a shame he was Canadian.
People see you playing these roles?
Well, it has concerned me a little bit.
I think that would be fucking hilarious. Leslie Nielsen, he's very slapstick. He's very hands-on. During the party, you see Coleman drink a little bit. You see him dance a little bit. And you see him talk to some of the women. I think it'll be pretty funny on how Leslie Nielsen would take the approach of being somewhat of a free-spirited butler. You know what I'm saying?
You got any other revisions, player?
The actor Paul Gleason, who played, who portrayed Clarence Beeks. I really didn't like his character. I thought he was kind of bland. If you changed him with Jim Belushi, if you changed him with Jim Belushi, I think they're interchangeable. You could have really did either way, and the movie would have been the same. The movie would have been the same movie.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. GoodView. Now, Barry, tell him about the story. You bug-eyed, pudding-filled pile of reindeer shit.
Okay, kids. So, considering that this movie is over 40 years old, it mostly does a decent job in terms of social commentary. It's Christmas season in the city that cream cheese built, and Dan Aykroyd's Lewis Winthorpe is an affluent, croissant-munching country club asswipe who lives a life of privilege.
Yeah, not to mention he gets to bang Kristen Holby.
Sweet succulent Christ, don't speak to me of Kristen Holby's Penelope. Oh, Barry's got a terrible weakness for the hot, snobby types. Probably because I've always been so goddamn bankrupt. God, she's incredible.
Barry, Kristen Holby wouldn't deign to spit on your grave if it were on fire. And yes, I'm allowing for the fact that she's now 73 years old.
Ooh, better watch out, Bovon. Talking nasty like that? You about to have Barry pitching that fun-sized Yule log of his.
Oh, yeah? Well, I still would, you shit asses. You know exactly what I'm talking about, and I don't care who knows it.
Oh, God. Barry, you really are unspeakably pathetic, bro.
Meanwhile, Billy Ray Valentine is living on the other side of the proverbial railroad tracks. Christ. You know, now that I'm actually describing the premise, it makes the movie sound kind of trite. Anyway, the only real difference between Lois Winthorpe and Billy Ray Valentine is that Winthorpe is grifting the stack exchange, while old Billy Ray is grifting the streets of Philadelphia.
Well, if you ask me, there's a lot more dignity in Billy Ray's grift.
Yeah, so anyway, Valentine and Winthorpe eventually crossed paths, and because he's wealthy and white and has good social connections, old Winthorpe gets the benefit of the doubt, and Billy Ray Valentine gets charged with stumbling into the rich white country club while being black.
But it turns out that Jack Mathau and Walter Lemon here are avid students of the human theater, and they've been reading up on the nature versus nurture debate.
Given the right surroundings and encouragement, I'll bet that man could run our company as well as your young Winthorpe.
Yeah, so Randolph Duke believes that human behavior is shaped almost entirely by environment, while Mortimer Duke is more like David Duke, arguing that it all comes down to blood and genetics.
And apparently these two wily old asswipes aren't getting enough excitement in their lives, so they decide to run a little social experiment on Winthorpe and Valentine. First, they frame Winthorpe as a thief and an addict and fire him from the Duke and Duke company. As a result, Winthorpe is locked out of his bank account and his home. Worse yet, he suffers a profound loss of social capital. Yeah, remember snobby hot Penelope and those shit-ass leeches at the country club? Well, now that he's poor, they want nothing to do with Winthorpe.
Well, goddamn. Winthorpe really does become a bona fide loser. A lowlife. A skin mite clinging to the shriveled nutsack of human society. A regular bankrupt Barry, you might say.
You made your point, you fucking pest. Yeah, so instead of golfers with fat asses and dickheads who wear cardigans, Winthorpe has to hitch his Section 8 wagon to Ophelia, the kind-hearted sex worker.
You gonna talk about the boob scene, Barry?
Yeah, there's a boob scene. Everybody knows about it. It's completely gratuitous and does nothing to complicate the story. But I guess you won't hear us complaining.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Jamie Lee Curtis does have a nice body.
Yeah, but while Winthorpe goes from riches to rags, old Billy Ray Valentine's stock is going up. Those two old prolapse gaspers have hired Valentine to take Winthorpe's job. At first, the movie tries to show us that Valentine ain't got no class. But all too quickly, he figures out that his new friends are only there because he got a limousine and a house with curb appeal.
Hey, who been putting out their clothes on my floor?
I'm worried about the girls at the party dancing. You saw that shimmy she had? They were popping. They were popping. I want the ones that were dancing.
Yes. Finally, we have somebody who understands these movies. You're fired, Bovon.
Boo!
Bovon, I'm not gonna say this.
Show us some bush.
All of us are having a conversation for some reason, bro.
It's because you're so handsome.
He is handsome.
Yeah, Shania says he lays some pretty good pipe.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Okay, so the Christmas boobies are in full swing. Plus, it turns out that Valentine is totally capable of spouting a bunch of bullshit to make it sound like he understands the stock market.
Okay, pork belly prices have been dropping all morning, which means everybody's sitting in their office and they're waiting for him to hit rock.
Yeah, but wasn't Winthorpe doing basically the same thing?
Nobody understands the goddamn stock market. Even Statler and Waldorf admit that the whole thing's a grift. Whether the clients end up making profits or losing their rotten asses.
Duke and Duke get the commissions.
Yeah, so just as we might have guessed, it turns out it's a lot easier to be Winthorpe than it is to be Valentine. In no time at all, old Winthorpe finds himself resorting to a life of crime and hard substances.
How much for the gun?
Yeah, and that's how we end up with this hilariously bleak sequence where Winthorpe gets all liquored up, dons the most rancid Santa Claus suit of all time, and tries to plant a bunch of party favors inside Valentine's office.
God damn, Dan Aykroyd knows how to sell it.
Yep, and that's that. Rich people tend to think the worst possible nightmare is being poor. So Winthorpe hooks his little shit-ass finger around the trigger, and yeah, it's a pretty bleak ending. Sort of like a Rick Alverson movie. Winthorpe perishes, but Valentine finally gets his spot at the table. It's like the circle of life from The Lion King.
Yeah, but Barry, that's not actually how...
Listen, Winthorpe takes the quick way out, and that's why he's the hero of this story. So Merry Christmas, asswipes. Life is a brief and violent carousel of disappointment and injustice, and you're either the grifter or the griftee.
God damn it, Barry. Winthorpe's Craigslist Derringer malfunctions. There's still more movie to analyze.
Oh, well, Jesus gravy spraying Christ. Excuse me for not watching the movie. You know, it's been years since
And Barry!
Time to get paid.
Season's greetings, you irredeemable dirtbags. What's the matter? Have the holidays got you down because you got no money, no prospects, no hope for the future? Well, step right up, friends. Say hello to the eggnoggin, heavily carbonated eggnog-based beverage from our good friends at Poorhaus. Listen, don't delude yourself. There's no way you can afford to buy your young'un that fancy new Xbox or electric guitar or real doll or whatever the hell they're asking for this year. And that's where eggnoggin comes in. Boasting an ABV of 20%, eggnoggin packs one hell of a holiday-scented punch. Suck my long balls, Evan Williams. Besides, that heavy carbonation will tickle your belly just right till you fall fast asleep on that leaky air mattress you call a bed. Drink enough of these bad Larrys and you'll sleep right through New Year's. Hell, give a couple cans to your kiddos. They'll forget all about that Nintendo Switch 2 that you can't afford to buy them. Not to mention the Willy Wonka Lego set. I said the Willy Wonka Lego set. Barry, you cheap gluten-filled prick.
Ah, piss off, Grandpa Joe.
Oh, heartless.
I'm not buying it.
Okay, jackasses, the promo code is Dwight Yoakam.
Game on.
Okay, back to the fucking movie. So, at this point, Louis Winthorpe has proven Uncle Randy Duke 100% correct. He's made the transition from uptight day-trading prep school cunt boy to a pilled-up gun-toting ball Santa who smells like shit and likes to cuss at little fat, dirty kids.
What are you doing? God damn it.
Yeah, well, by this time, Valentine has figured out that the Dukes are running a crooked-ass play on him as well.
And they got no intention of letting Valentine keep his job, even though he's doing at least as well as Winthorpe did.
Do you really believe I would have a run our family business, Randolph?
So now, instead of fighting one another for table scraps, Winthorpe and Valentine make the very sexy decision of teaming up in order to bang the Duke brothers into submission.
Bovon, you know, that's a pretty terrible choice of words.
Well, Valentine knows that the Dukes have bribed their hired goon Clarence Beeks to illegally supply them with an early crop report on the orange juice market.
Yeah, so the plan is to sabotage Beeks by trolling him as he makes his way to Wall Street, stealing the genuine crop report, replacing it with a phony crop report that Winthorpe and Valentine have doctored.
Yeah, and that's when we get this goofy-ass Amtrak sequence where all the characters pretend to be from other countries or whatever.
And then we get this bit with goddamn Lionel.
Lionel!
Sweet candy-striped Christ. That's pretty bad, huh?
It ain't great, Barry. But to be fair, this kind of bullshit was pretty common at the time. Gene Wilder did it in 1976's Silver Streak.
Don't break it. Hey, man, how do I look? You look sharp.
Plus, we got that nutty-ass Soul Man movie from '86.
All my life, I've only been able to think about one thing. White women.
I'm pretty sure Chevy Chase does it in Fletch.
Yeah, well, don't forget old Jimmy Kimmel.
And that there's called retardation. Now...
Okay, let's hear from our friend, Mr. GoodView. What's your take on Lionel?
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. I personally do not condone blackface at all. I think it's pretty despicable, but when Robert Downey Jr. did it in Tropic Thunder, I thought it was funny.
Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
And this movie, for the times, I'm pretty sure they thought it was a spectacle. Coming from the time of like Blazing Saddles and all these other movies, shout out to like Mel Brooks. Coming from these movies that had strong hints of racism and political backing, I thought this was kind of funny because he didn't Sean Penn it, you know what I'm saying? He didn't go full Barry, you know what I'm saying? He didn't go full Barry.
Everybody knows you never go full Barry.
You know what I'm saying? So Winthorpe calls himself coming into the train with his disguise on after you see Eddie Murphy's character, Billy Ray Valentine, come in there as Iboku Nanji or something like that. And Winthorpe comes in with the wig on with curls that's not even dreads. Purely disgusting, just paint, not even colored tone. It's just horrible paint. And all these pins on his jacket and stuff. And he comes in there and he's like, "Oh, I'm Lionel Joseph from the African Education Conference.
Do you remember me? It's Lionel Joseph.
I was the director, the culture events at the Haile Selassie Pavilion. Babuli. I mean, the babuli was funny. I don't condone blackface at all, but I will say, dude, that had me going. That is something that brought the scene together.
Okay, so, look, there are elements in this movie that haven't aged well at all. But, considering this thing hails from the early 80s, I guess it could be worse. Yeah, so with the real Clarence Weeks incapacitated, the protagonists are able to intercept a real crop report and then deliver a phony doctored report to the Dukes, with Valentine posing as Weeks. Then, deep within the soulless, unholy depths of the New York Stock Exchange, Valentine and Winthorpe wait for Duke and Duke to drive up the price of OJ by buying wig.
Because according to the phony crop report, the cold winter has ravaged orange production, right?
I guess it makes sense. If the Dukes believe that orange crops are in short supply, then it follows that they'd want to buy as much juice as possible.
So Valentine and Winthorpe wait till the Dukes pump them prices higher than Stabby Baby's cholesterol levels, and then they dump them shits faster than a Russell Brand meme coin.
Yeah, well, see, the Dukes have driven up the stock prices, so Valentine and Winthorpe short sell a bunch of their stocks at $1.42 per pound. Then the true crop report comes out, and all these money dicks realize there isn't going to be an orange shortage. In other words, there's a surplus, not a dearth. So they've all just cut themselves by buying oranges at super high prices.
Cold winter has apparently not affected the orange harvest.
Yeah, and now Winthorpe and Valentine wait till the prices plummet back down to 29 cents, then they start buying again.
So Winthorpe and Valentine basically sold high and then bought low.
Is that right, Barry?
Damned if I know. Look, there's a reason I'm bankrupt. Asswipes.
Hey, the important thing is that Bernie Madoff and Montgomery Burns here have been sent to the Poorhaus. See, Valentine was 100% on brand when he said the worst fate a rich asshole can possibly imagine is being converted to a broke asshole.
It occurs to me that the best way you hurt rich people is by turning them into poor people.
Well, that's right. Now, let's see what happens to Valentine and Winthrop and all the more virtuous characters.
Looking good, Billy Ray!
Feeling good, Lewis?
God damn. So now they get to eat buttered crab dinners on their own private island?
And they've got a servant? I don't know. Seems kind of fucked up.
Barry, where's this supposed to be? I hope that ain't Little St. James.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, folks. Too much goddamn wealth makes monsters of men. Anyway, I guess now Valentine and Winthrop and their friends all get to be the assholes.
I want a buttered crab dinner.
Well, what about the two grizzled old twinks?
Yeah, well, they lose their prolapsed asses because they thought there was going to be an orange shortage.
Okay. See, I like that part. Let's see how those two old dickheads like living on the streets.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Al, tell them what Kurt Vonnegut wrote on the subject of poor people in America.
Well, Kurt Vonnegut wrote a lot of things, Barry, but let me quote from one of Vonnegut's fictional characters, playwright Howard W. Campbell. America is the wealthiest nation on earth, but its people are mainly poor, and poor Americans are urged to hate themselves. To quote the American humorist Kin Hubbard, "It ain't no disgrace to be poor, but it might as well be." It is, in fact, a crime for an American to be poor, even though America is a nation of poor. Every other nation has folk traditions of men who were poor, but extremely wise and virtuous, and therefore more estimable than anyone with power and gold. No such tales are told by the American poor. They mock themselves and glorify their betters.
Yeah, and that's why all the fairy tales end with somebody marrying a prince or a king or whatever. If the heroes don't get to end up rich, then it's not really a happy ending.
Well, I think hyper-wealthy people are pretty great. You know, one day I'm gonna be filthy rich and they're all gonna know how cool I am. Plus, these money folks are really in touch with what matters. They know what's best for all of us.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would...
Barry, you're pathetic. Bro, you're gonna draw your last breath inside that dumpster behind Arby's. Still talking about how you're gonna be rich one day. Plus, you look like that pissy old frog guy from Rocco's Modern Life.
Piss off, Fly. What else you got for us, Al?
The great joke of trading places lies not merely in its comic reversals, but in its quiet unveiling of a recurring human folly, that humankind is condemned to endlessly relearn what it already knows. Every generation seems compelled to restage the same experiment, to discover again and again that cruelty masquerading as social order is still cruelty, and that bigotry, however politely it gets dressed up, remains as insipid as ever. The wealthy dukes of the film are perfect caricatures of this blindness. They imagine themselves as stewards of civilization, yet they move through the world as if embalmed by their own boredom. Gray suits, gray heads, gray words. There is no fire in their laughter, no spontaneity in their gestures. They are mummified by their own sense of superiority. By contrast, the streets teem with vitality, humor, and cunning, the very human qualities that overabundant wealth has stifled within the dukes. But here, too, we find tragedy. The poor, shaped by the invisible catechism of the market, have been trained to despise themselves for their lack of means. They measure their worth by the same absurd standards that enslave their masters. John Landis's comedy becomes, perhaps unintentionally, a parable of spiritual inversion. The rich are impoverished in soul, the poor are rich in possibility, yet shackled by shame and self-loathing. Curiously, the film can conceive of no true escape from this dreadful cycle. It's as if survival itself were a zero-sum game. After all, the film's version of a happy ending is not to make obsolete the very notion of a manservant, but to ensure that the apparent good guys have money enough to avoid such an unworthy fate. Okay, let's throw it back to Fat Krampus.
You little smug son of a bitch. Okay, asswipes, that's all we got for now. Thanks to all the tariffs, it looks like old Barry cannot afford to pay for Christmas sex this year. But maybe next time. Anyway, I guess...
Say it, Barry. Let it out, Fat King.
I guess I wish you all a Merry goddamn Christmas or whatever. And here's to hoping you and your stupid family can all afford to pay for sex this year. Even though I can't.
Yeah, that was very sweet, Barry. Unfortunately, it's not gonna save you.
What's that supposed to be?
Clap them lips, Barry. It's time for the news.
Thanks. Thanks for watching Chud News. I am Niles, and, I love to gulp long hot ropes all season long. Okay, we've got a special report. Don't buy any Legos this year. They're deadlier than ever.
Damn things have always been deadly.
I lost half a toe to the goddamn Ewok village. Tired of stepping on them things.
No, it's not that. Look, there was a mix-up at the factory, and, it's very important that you don't let...
Turn off that stupid-ass flicker box and look at this!
Who gave him the goddamn Legos?
Hey, don't look at me. I got him the Lincoln Logs because he's like 1,000 fucking years old.
This is the greatest! It's got little teeny tiny cannons and everything!
Don't point it at me, Bovon. You floppy old enema-toting son of a bitch.
What the hell, Mr. Goodview? Did you send him that thing?
Did you just hang up on me, Barry? Barry!
God damn it, Goodview! You just ruined Christmas!
Fire in my hole!
Now, goddamn it, Bovon, that was close, you shit-ass.
Okay. I guess you get to survive Christmas this year, Barry, but don't gloat.
Ooh! Listen up, gang. I hear sleigh bells.
Ho, ho, ho! No, goddammit! Yeah, you little mistletoe son of a bitch, I will not go quietly, not for 1 minute, not no how. This one! Shitters!
Well, at least we can all agree that Barry was responsible for punching his own ticket, right?
Oh, yeah. Nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah, we don't want to hear any nonsense about missing security guards or closed circuit camera fuckery. He did it to himself, okay?
Bovon, it's not...
Hey! Where's Barry?
Merry Christmas. Shitter was full.
Would you please hold the goddamn hammering now?
Forgiveness is more than saying sorry.
Niagara Falls, Frankie ain't